expenses, but also they're saying they can access talent pools outside of their geographic boundaries, which opens the door for all sorts of business improvement because they have access to a level of talent and skill that they didn't before. So now that we've finally made this shift, it looks like organizations are embracing this concept, and now experts are saying we are going to be able to work from anywhere, not just home. So maybe home, but also a cafe, hospital where sick family members convalescing, the beach, a friend's house, and yes, even in the office that you used to commute to every day if you believe you need to go in. Perhaps not this, though. A little levity in our day this morning. So next, culture. So culture change is a part of the predictions, and not only the shift from face-to-face to a remote culture, which is certainly a very big shift, but also many businesses did something remarkable when we were forced to shelter in place, in that what they did is they became human and they showed they care. And leaders reached out concerned for the emotional and mental health of their employees. And not only has that led companies to reporting record levels of engagement in spite of extremely stressful circumstances, which you'd think the results would go the opposite way, it also helped them recognize that culture is what's going to help companies attract and retain talent now and in the future, if they didn't realize it before, and unfortunately many didn't. And it also proved that culture could not only be shared, but also built and strengthened in a remote work environment. So I've spoken to many clients that unfortunately had to furlough many employees during shelter in place, but they're optimistic about the future, and they believe that they'll be doing a large amount of rehiring. And before they do, they're taking the opportunity to reimagine the corporate values, the culture, leadership characteristics, and they're recreating onboarding and other programs such as leadership development that reinforce culture accordingly. The third prediction is the demand for integrated tools that support remote work and culture, especially virtual teaming tools. So I know if you're anything like me, you've had to embrace digital collaboration tools like never before. So even Remo here that we're using today, it was a new tool I learned within the past week. But there's also, tools that we've been using in the past, like Zoom and Slack and Basecamp, and even Microsoft Teams and Google Hangouts are all tools that those of us who can embrace them will be at the forefront of the future because we know how to leverage them. So obviously there's going to be an increasing reliance on technology to bring teams together, both online and offline, as the nature of work continues to shift. And those of us in learning and development that really understand these tools and how to leverage them for to support learners, we're going to be ahead of the game. So the next prediction is leadership and how drastically leadership is changing right now. And you talk about through lines. This is another one that we've been talking about in the conference, and we will continue to, I'm sure. The ability to lead through change is going to be so critical as our future is going to remain uncertain. And you think about it, in the past we had the old management paradigm of managers as enforcers of process. And that really changed overnight. And employees need strong leaders that are able to guide them as they adapt to new work policies, new practices, new technologies, etc. And we're going to see a rise in leaders, mentors, and coaches. Currently organizations are already seeing this. As I mentioned before, managers are checking up on workers to see how they're coping with the pandemic and working from home. And as they teach employees how to use digital tools, and as they set an example of how to communicate virtually, it's so funny. You know, you achieve a certain point in your career because you've gotten really good at knowing the answers to certain things. And the true test of leadership is not so much having the answers, but marshaling the strength to figure it out, to learn it, and to organize a team around going into the future when some things are unknown, and be willing to role model that vulnerability. I think we were just talking about, you know, I don't have all the answers, but I am willing to risk it. I'm willing to skin some knees in order to get to that future state. Furthermore, communication, you know, has always been the cornerstone of strong leadership, and leaders are discovering the importance of proactive communication, as well as skills required to build relationships virtually, because they're not the same. You don't have that, I bumped into you in the hall and asked you about your kids. Now I have to reach out and ask you pointedly, how are you? I have to schedule social time with my employees, which seems a little unusual, but it is going to be the new way we work. And I just have to say, hats off to all of you leaders. And we're all leaders in one way, shape, or form, as we've had to learn new ways of working and role model those ways of working so that others can follow. Next, we just talked about learnability. Well, we talked about agility, and some experts are calling it really learnability. So for the past couple of years, learnability, agility have been on the list of critical competencies for the workforce of the future, which just means the faster employees learn a new skill, or the faster they learn to use a new product or tool, the better. And those who have mastered the use of digital tools are already one step ahead than those who are struggling with online meetings, virtual communication, and other online collaboration tools. Those folks just simply aren't as productive as those who did embrace technology and continue to embrace technology. And the performance gap between non-learners and learners is only going to widen as change comes at us more quickly and unpredictably. So just where we've been, we have a new focus on flexible work and remote work, workplace culture, technology, empathetic leadership, and learnability and agility. So as learning and development professionals, we have our work cut out for us. While it may feel like temporarily your work has been put on pause, all of the experts, and what we're hearing, what I just heard Elizabeth talk about, is all of the experts, including many clients I speak to in the Fortune 500 and those attending the conference, are saying we are more essential than ever. This need, this ability to help others learn, grow, and develop is essential. Clients are telling me that their organizations are realizing how mission critical the learning and development work is. And they're challenged because they're having to manage several different challenges at once. First, planning a return to the workplace. Second, suddenly having to convert hours upon hours of face-to-face talent development experiences into virtual experiences as a Band-Aid. For the short term, before they figure out what their long-term learning strategies are going to be that will take into account the potential need to move in and out of sheltering in place in the future. And they're trying to chart a path forward to pivot into that future, and including leveraging some of the advancements they enacted during this crisis to ask the question, you know, how will development get done in the future? We were talking to a panel of learning experts in the Chicagoland area, and they were saying, suddenly, I'm an expert. And you know, the CEO is coming to me and saying, how are you going to do this? And so they're very challenged to have an answer to that as soon as possible. And of course, some people are asking, you know, if we will truly work from anywhere in the future, will we also learn from anywhere? On demand in the flow of work? And if so, are brick and mortar corporate universities a thing of the past, as was suggested by Brandon Busteed in this little bomb he penned for Forbes? And I'm sure it was to sort of be provocative and get a reaction, and boy, did he. I looked at LinkedIn the minute this went out, and so many of my connections were talking about what he said and arguing about it and that sort of thing. But the leaders I talked to said, no, it probably won't go away. They don't buy that. There's always going to be a place for networked face-to-face learning experiences. And the difference is we're just getting smarter about making sure they are called for as part of the fundamental design of the learning experience. So, oops, I went a little too far, didn't I? So basically, the biggest strategy shift for learning and development, as I can tell from my interviews and my research, is that, much of the early instructor-led training, the early e-learning, assumed the method of training before understanding the learner's needs. And I'm sure I'm preaching to the choir right now. It was all about the company and what the company wanted to do. And so it was very event-based. So, broad course objectives, teaching everything there is to know in one event. And, the company wants to protect itself, so the company will provide you with sexual harassment training. And, and we want to do it in such a way that it makes it easy on us to manage compliance, and et cetera. But the big shift is now learner-centric design. So really prioritizing what content is absolutely necessary. And so many of us have been going for years and years, we need to focus on the learner. We need to target only those skills that they need at this moment in time. And then we need to provide performance support and coaching and that sort of thing. And this is happening. We are being listened to now because there's no other choice, and nobody wants to sit through 8 hours of a lecture online. Nobody will, frankly. And so, and we all know that delivery of a course has not been proven to drive the adoption of new behaviors and skills, right? So now we're having learner-centric design, short, specific, just-in-time learning modules based on what a learner needs to know, versus everything the subject matter expert knows. And so now it's time. Now we can leverage multiple learning methods in order to accomplish the same thing. And we can string them together in a new way so that we are leveraging what they're good at for that particular application instead of one size fits all. And the learning leaders I'm talking to are looking to hire talent that understand this, and learning and development professionals that are able to create these learner-centric designs that leverage all available modalities in order to achieve the biggest success. And before I wrap up, which I am rounding the corner on, if you're concerned about time, is just an example. So here's an example of how all these things can come together in one program. This design this is a multiple day instructor-led training that was re-envisioned, completely redesigned into a blended learner-centric experience. So things like pre-event communications, little videos, podcasts, because this particular audience happened to be in their cars a lot, that could then be leveraged post-class for follow-up, a live kickoff webinar where they simulated some of these on-the-job activities so people could assess what they needed to learn. So then going into the next challenge, they could focus on those specific things. A lot of micro-learning modules for instruction tied with gamification, games to see if they can get it done in time, so that people were excited about it, where their managers were competing against other groups. This particular learning culture was open to gamification. I'm not saying everybody is, so I'm just giving you one example. And again, it's really learner-centric, so we knew that these folks would respond positively to that. Plus on-the-job support. So no longer an event, what happens after the event with the managers who are going to have to lead these people to develop skills virtually. So this program designed with that in mind, and the managers were another audience, learning audience for this program, and then reinforcement with social support, because we are social animals, whether or not we can get together face to face. And so one way we learn is through collaboration, and this is certainly the case in the workforce of the future. So I guess a takeaway that I'd like you to have. The Deloitte 2020 Human Capital Trends Report said now is not the time to pull back on workforce development efforts, but instead to double down on commitments to building a resilient workforce that can adapt in the face of constant change. So I hope the takeaway for you is that great design is more essential than ever before, and thank heavens we are finally being recognized for our ability to do that. And we have all sorts of supporting rationale for it right now, maybe in ways that we never have before. So supporting culture, skills, technology, leadership, and all the ways companies are doing business is the value we have to offer our organizations and society. To stay relevant, each one of us has to take these things into consideration, though. You know, how agile am I? How much do I know about collaborative digital technologies? Believe me, I am still learning myself, but I am on the road. How well versed am I at creating learner-centric experiences? Do I know, am I relying on the body of work I've always produced, or am I challenging myself to learn new things and open my mind that I might not be an expert? And ultimately, we are leaders when it comes to learning and development. So we need to role model it so others can follow. I guess I would wish you the best of luck and say we're in this together. And I am so appreciative to L&D Cares for bringing us together to do so. Thanks.